This is Ed Robinson, continuing our lessons on C#. We'll consider functions. This is a function here. We'll just call it some name called doit. Made this name up, and it's a static function. I'll explain what that is in a moment. We call the function from here, so we call the function doit. You notice it's being called from main. Now you might not see any relevance of functions, so what I'm going to do is to show you functions, applications of functions, and the way that they are used in a program. If we take a look at this program on genetic algorithms, actually, I consider it to be rather well laid out. Genetic algorithms emulate chromosomes and human chromosomes or animal chromosomes, whereby they mutate and you have random changes in position of the chromosome, and this is a program to emulate that. We can see that we have here the main program. This is where it all happens, this static void main, as you know. That's the main part of the program. Now these are names of functions here: calculate fitness, init population, and so on. And these functions, you'll find them down here, user-defined functions. Here, for example, is init population, which does what it says here. It initializes the population. So you can tell what this particular function does. I'm going to explain here what public and void and main, public, static, and so on. A function is always contained within two braces like this, and you can see, well, here's another function here which says calculate the fitness. That's it there. So, or sort by fitness, calculate fitness. So if we look into main, you see we call the function. So we call calculate fitness, we call init population to set up the population. So we know what these things do, and they've got names which are meaningful, and you can say what it does. And then once you've written your program, once you've written your function like this, for example, and you know it initializes the population, then you can basically forget about it, just as long as you know how to call it. And we're going to talk about passing something to it, which in this case we pass the population. So you have a function here in its simplest form. What I'll do, I'll put a breakpoint here and run it, and you can see that it comes to doit, and then what happens after that? Doit then calls the function doit, and it goes down here and then executes that particular function. You can see the result is and you might say, well, why don't we just have that inside the inside main? Well, it really is just a demonstration. I showed you a more complex example which might make more sense. We could actually place that function body before main, and if we were to build that and run it, then you'll find that it does exactly the same thing. So you get the idea of this being like an isolated bit of code which is called from here. Notice that this here, static means it doesn't need an object. Now we haven't talked about objects yet, so you'll have to really wait to see what that really means. So for the moment, always just use the word static when you have a standalone. That's what we could say it means. It's a standalone function. That's the meaning of static. Void means it doesn't return anything. So when you call the function, it doesn't send anything back here to do it. I'll just put that back to where it was before, and how we call the function here. We always have curly braces, as I mentioned before, that denotes the body of a function. And now you might understand that main itself is a function. You see, it has curly braces, so it is a function, as I mentioned a lot earlier on. Let me now pass a value to the function. I'm going to pass the value 4, and I need to declare an int here which receives that value of j, and I might as well write out the value of j as well. So I might as well put a breakpoint here, and then I can run my program and do an F11 to single step, and you can see the value of 4 which is passed to j here. So j has got the value of 4, and then I continue on and j has got the value of 4. So if I continue to run the program, you'll see that the value of 4 is indeed printed out. The value of 4 which is passed to the function, in this case the 4 here, is called an argument, and the value which receives it, the variable which receives it, is called a parameter. but normally we just mix them up and call them both parameters sometimes. But that's the real distinction. This is the argument and this is the parameter which is passed. So let me just revert to the program we had before. We weren't passing anything to the function. And let me just build that. I can run it just to make sure it's still working. It's not passing anything to the function. What we're going to do now is to return something from the function. So we'll define a variable in here which we can return. Just say int j equals whatever, and then I'm going to return that value. So I need to have the word here return. We're going to send j back from whence it was called. I'll make another value here. Well, I can just say here that int k equals. If we're going to return something, we must have an equal sign here. Now, it's showing a red line here because we need to change this here because it's actually returning a value. Remember, a void meant it returned nothing. So now I'm going to say int, it's going to be returning an integer. So I'll place a breakpoint here and then run my program once again down to that breakpoint. You can see immediately after this doit, what will it do then? It will go off and call the doit function. It will initialize j and give j a value, and then we're going to return the value of j, which you can see is 2. But now where will that go? It'll return back to here. So k equals that particular value, which indeed is the value returned, which will be, as you can see somewhere, the value is 2. So this is how you return a value from a function. Remember, you must specify what the return type is going to be, and you must use the word return. And then you can have an equal sign. A function is always in the right hand side of an equal sign. It's not quite true. You could have a console right line and put your doit in the right line. As long as it's on the right hand side, we call that an R value. So at this stage it might be an idea to try this exercise. Write code to return the hypotenuse of a triangle, 3 and 4. So it's 3 squared plus 4 squared. The answer should be 5, of course. So if you'd like to try that, pause the video, give that a try, and then I will show you how we should do it. So first of all, we'll give our function the name. And then we're going to pass it 2 values. So we need to accept those 2 values. Then we need to find the square root of so we need to multiply them together. Or square them, that is, each of them individually. And we need to take the square root of all that.